I was already aware that Bigfoot is real. I didn't know so much about Central Texas, but certainly in areas in East Texas. Um, and so I got on the BFRO website, Bigfoot Research Organization website, where they post investigations of people making claims of witnessing Bigfoot. And it's by county, so I went to Williamson County, and I found this description of this sighting that took place just right over there on the other side of that road. They try to not make the location obvious, but I was able to kind of interpret it and look at Google Earth at the same time and pinpoint the actual location where the sighting took place, which is where we're at right now, but just on the other side of that creek. And so I came down here with a partner of mine, and we were on the other side of the creek. We walked across the creek, coming towards where we're at now, and I noticed a T-post that had been bent on a fence line. Now, on the other side of this fence line is a large acreage ranch, and there's cliffs, there's caves, and it's a lot of land back here. And even going this way was the same way, and then the creek going the whole way. So the habitat was here. But when we crossed the creek, and I saw that bent T-post, I went up to it to try to figure out how that could have been bent, because they're strong, and it looked like something had crossed the fence there. I turned around, and I could see a perfect trackway of a Bigfoot. And keep in mind, I came here to disprove this, and we were immediately confronted with a trackway, a very good trackway. And it went that's probably 40 feet, and then you could even see where it stopped at the road, bent down, and it made a knuckle print where it put its fist down. We assumed because there was a car coming and it was ducking. But so that kind of spun me around from trying to disprove it to being confronted with some pretty significant evidence. But see, they couldn't have even, if this had been bent like this, they couldn't have even have driven this post into the ground. So this happened after it was put in, and it would have taken an incredible amount of pressure to do that. That is hard work. I believe that in different parts of the United States, they have different habits. Up in the Pacific Northwest, they'll actually follow the season. As the berries ripen, they'll be traveling north as the berries ripen. And in Texas, I'm not so sure that they have that kind of migration. I think they have a large range, typically, and they might move around within that range. But in a place like this, my guess is that, yeah, they have a certain range and area that they probably travel in. Because this creek goes actually quite a long way.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you think they're using the brushy creek as kind of like a road or
corridor?
Gateway? Yeah, corridor.
That's how they seem to move along waterways. So that would be my guess.
Right. Okay. And what do you think would be the best time to research or to go out and try to look for these things?
Well, in other parts of Texas, we don't research very much in the heat of summer, mostly because it's extremely uncomfortable for the researcher. But we also, we don't know anything, but some of us feel that they seem to hunker down in the summer too, and just they find a cool spot, and they don't move far from it in the summertime.
Now you said you saw one trackway. Can you tell us the size of the feet? How did they look?
The feet they were bare feet, large bare feet, kind of blocky in shape, and they were about 18 inches long.
Oh wow.
And there was the trackway that we could see real well, was probably 30 feet of it, and the footsteps themselves are probably about 4 feet from each other.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
So do you think it might have been an adult, juvenile?
I think so. I think it was an adult.
An
I
adult
think it was an
mixed?
adult. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the strength. I believe that it crossed this fence. It bent that T-post down when it did, because it's kind of a hog fence with strands of barbed wire at the top, and I think it bit the T-post down to get over the barbed wire, and then walk towards the road. And we went over on the other side of the road to look for prints. We couldn't find any, so we don't know where it went after that.
So as a researcher, a lot of the research done in Texas is usually done in the East. Is Central Texas like a viable place? Do you think it kind of gets overlooked because there's so much action going on in East Texas?
What researchers are finding is that they're all over Texas, even in South Texas and far South Texas. I think the density of the population may thin out the harsher the environment, but Central Texas, again, I mean, just like Brushy Creek, it has everything they need. It's got food, it's got water, it's got shelter, it's got cover to move, and they certainly seem to be able to tolerate, I don't know how well, but they seem to tolerate the heat in the summer. So I think they could be anywhere in Texas. And they, when they have an area where they're birthing children and raising children and using to feed themselves and their children, when people come into it, I think it's understandable that they would resent that and want to at least scare them out, scare them away.
That was a little hard. Yeah. You got more experience than I do.
It's small. Water washed through here. I have heard stories of, if you take Brushy Creek going east of I-35 and even east of Round Rock, I've heard some stories out there. My partner and I did another investigation down by 183, closer to Brushy Creek and 183, and there was this one area that a bunch of four-wheel drive vehicles had come into this part of the land and just tore it up. They just went in there. It was obviously some young kids with their dad's trucks, and they were just tearing up lots of stuff, a lot of destruction, just tearing things up with their trucks. And on the trails, we were walking out on the trail that the four-wheel drive trucks were using to get in and out of this area, in the middle, right in the middle of that little 2-track, was a mutilated coyote. And this coyote was mutilated in such a way that I find it extremely difficult to believe that a human being could have done it. This coyote was literally turned inside out and tied in a knot. All of its intestines, all the soft intestines were gone. And, you know, without being too I don't want to get too graphic, but it literally broke its face inside and out. Not just broke the lower jaw, but broke the face inside out. It looked like it reached down its throat, and now there's a tuft of hair coming out its throat that was the coyote's anus. And then the whole thing was just tied in a knot. And it almost seemed to me like something very angry had to have done that. And I didn't think that it was a coincidence that it was right where those 4-wheel drive trucks come in and out of that area. So I mean, I'll never know who or what did it, but I have a pretty good idea. I don't think they're exclusively nocturnal. I think they are predominantly nocturnal. I think they move around a lot more at night than they do during the day. But they're also out and around during the day as well. I have friends that are convinced that they live in caves, almost exclusively around the, continental United States. I don't know if I believe that. I believe that they do. If there's shelter available, they'll take advantage of it. They'll exploit it. Like I said, they're right in tune with nature. So, but I don't think they need that. I've seen what I think are shelters that they've made with branches and logs and things like that, where it's obvious that something's been large. It's obvious that something with a thumb built it, and something very large has been laying down in it. And so I think they're capable of exploiting any cover and concealment that's available, or manufacturing their own. Like the coyote down at the 4-wheel drive trail, I think they have every reason to be angry at us if we're encroaching on their environment. And they're kind of helpless to do anything about it, but I'm sure it makes them angry, So right there's where that house was, is where the sighting was reported. And it said it walked this way down the creek, came under the bridge, and he didn't see it after it went under the bridge. And that's where we went, and then crossed over to that T-post. I believe that they are hominids. They're not human, but they're hominids. I believe that they're just a different branch on the same tree as we are. And where we spent millions of years separating ourselves from nature, getting further and further away from nature, being able to control our climate, as far as air conditioning and heating and things like that. I believe for every step we took away from nature, they were completely absorbed in nature and learned to live within it perfectly. And I just think they're perfectly adapted, just even their size and their strength and their brains. I believe they're very, very smart. I believe they're geniuses, actually. That they're on a whole nother level from us. Um, be careful of just the the poison ivy and the rocks and the cliffs and things like that. Um, don't get too carried away, and just observe. Just keep your eyes open. Look for tracks and fence. We talked about fence crossings and just be alert and aware and watchful and observant.